and entrepreneur straight out of New York City, Michael Chernow. What's cracking?
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Creatures of Habit podcast. Today, I've got a couple of guys on the show that have created a brand that is near and dear to my heart. I use human improvement every single day as my go-to protein powder. The guys, Josh and Jason, are amazing dudes. I'm out in Los Angeles, and they live out here. Well, Josh actually bounces back and forth from a couple of different places, but they're both out here today. And so I figured I was going to get them on the show because I've wanted them on the show for a while. And, Creatures Have a Podcast. We've been doing in-person interviews. And so this was perfect. The coolest thing about human improvement for me is it is the best protein powder I have found ever. Why? A number of reasons, and we're going to get into that on the podcast. I think number one is because it is the most incredible on my gut. I have a pretty sensitive gut, and a lot of people have a pretty sensitive gut. Protein powder tends to be tough on the GI. And when you find one that is not, you better make it yours. And that's what I do with Human Improvement Protein. One other thing that I think is really awesome about human improvement is that it is the perfect marriage as an additional protein source for meal one. So I have a high protein requirement. I train my ass off, as you guys know. I eat about 200 grams of protein a day. And in order to get to that protein requirement on a daily basis, I have to supplement with protein powder. So I take a pouch of Human Improvement Protein or a scoop of Human Improvement Protein into my meal one every single day, which gets me 50 grams of protein in the morning for my first meal, which is awesome. I love the flavor. The ingredients are unbelievable, like unmatched. It's a whole food protein, which is like very, very hard to find, and also really expensive to pull off, and not easy to find somebody to help you create that. So I'm gonna let the guys talk a little bit more about Human Improvement Protein, but they also happen to be habit guys, right? They have a company called Human Improvement. The goal of what they do is to help us be better, improve our lifestyle through what we consume in regards to our nutrition. So I am really, really excited to have Jason and Josh on the show. Guys, welcome.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much, Michael. We're so happy to be here. We know this has been a long time in the making.
100%. You know, we've talked about this for a while, and in the beginning of the year, 2023, I kind of made a decision, and I said, hey, I don't think that Zoom podcasts are doing it for me anymore. I really do appreciate, I love listening to podcasts, but I really do appreciate this sort of in-person connectivity. I'm like a real human engagement person. Mm-hmm. And so I knew I was coming out here. We were able to line this up a few months ago. I'm stoked to have you guys.
Yep. Happy to be here.
Why don't you kick it off by just telling us a little bit about human improvement? For
sure. I think you encapsulated a bit for the most part when you were saying is that we created the brand with our mission and our name. Human improvement exists for the improvement of humans. We exist in this nutritional supplement space where so many of the products that are out there do anything but, supplement people's nutrition. They're often filled with gums, fillers, unnecessary ingredients that are quite opaque, often just to bring costs down. And we really wanted to create clean, innovative products for the improvement of humans and just be completely open about everything we're doing. We started with protein because that's where we saw the problem most acute, but also because protein is the building blocks for every single thing we do, every single thing in our body. And we live in a world where, unfortunately, the most popular products are flavors like cookie dough and flavors like Sour Patch Kids and are filled with God knows what to make them taste like that, and gums, fillers. I just look at the ingredient list on so many things and see how many of those you actually know what they are or what they do. We just knew there had to be a better way to do it. It really set us on a journey that I don't think even we expected to go on to get there. Because protein powder especially too is a space that call it in the last 30 years has been very little product innovation. Almost anything is whey protein or it's pea protein. And you see a lot of other ingredients that are in there that people have, but they're generally just fairy dusted in there to say they're in there. So, that really set us on this journey to think, how do we make a completely differentiated product that's unlike anything out there, that solves a problem that I know I had, but I know lots of other people had, which was around digestion. There's lots of people who can have no issue with whey protein. It's complete protein. It's cheap. That's great. There's a lot of people like you and I both who absolutely cannot digest whey protein and have a lot of issues with the other products on the market. We went on a year-plus journey trying to find the right blend of proteins to come up with our very unique and innovative blend of pumpkin protein, brown rice protein, pea protein, and cricket protein. A lot of people think the cricket is the most interesting part of the product. So we'll start with that just because people think it's often a novelty ingredient, but in fact, it is one of the most forgotten superfoods in the world. It is super easy to digest. There's some research showing that it can reduce the inflammatory markers in the gut. It can increase positive microbiota. But beyond that, as you mentioned, it's a whole food protein. It's minimally processed. It's high in B12. It's high in iron. It's high in fiber. It's high in prebiotics. There's so much to it. But that's not the only special thing about our product. We also removed all of the gums and fillers that you see in so many other proteins that people don't realize can cause gut issues or just systemic inflammation in general. The xanthan gum, the guar gum, the sunflower lectin. There's all sorts of other fillers, artificial flavors, added sugars. We took all of that out and we replaced it exclusively with functional superfoods, things like psyllium husk, which is high in fiber, active ingredient Metamucil, flaxseed, which is been around as a homeopathic gut remedy, but also fiber and omega 3s, coconut milk, MCTs, so healthy fats, stuff for energy, stuff for brain function. There's so much to it, as you understand much more than anyone else, having gone through and done the exact same thing with Meal One, and are so meticulous about every single ingredient that are in there, because so many people view protein powder as a commodity product. Each one's the same as the other, and it doesn't matter which one you take. And that's just not the truth. The quality of your protein, the diversity of your protein are so important to make sure that you're getting all of the nutrients you need. And a lot of people are taking the same protein powder they took when they were 18 years old and are complaining about the same things that they had about whether they're not feeling well, or they avoid it, or they've gone away from it. But as we get older, the quality of our fuel matters so much more. And we've talked about this in the past. When you're younger and you're working out all the time, all that matters is how hot the furnace is burning, and it doesn't matter what you put in there to keep it hot. You just got to feed it. As we get older, the quality of the fuel that goes in to make sure that we can burn at the same level and the same intensity for the same duration is so much more important.
Something that I'm thinking about as you're talking is this idea that I would say the majority of people that actually consume, even in the world of wellness, don't actually know what these ingredients that you just listed out are actually going to do for them. Mm-hmm. However, the beauty of what you guys have created and what I've created with Meal One is that they don't have to, actually, because you've done all the work. You've actually taken the time, spent the money, taken the years of research and development to figure out a way to create something that is going to be the most forgiving on the gut, which I think is honestly, quite frankly, like the superpower of your product. Because I've used protein powder for a long time, right? And I think protein powder is becoming more and more, I don't want to say mainstream, but is becoming more and more prevalent, especially as the plant-based world, right, becomes more and more popular. It's very, very hard to find protein for plant-based humans, right? But ultimately, I just think that protein powder is definitely something that is becoming way more prevalent, and having protein powder that doesn't agree with your digestive system is really, really not fun. It's actually not fun, and from the years of bodybuilding that I've done, right? My requirement is 200 grams now, but when I was bodybuilding, it was at times 240, 260 grams of protein that I was taking in. So I was supplementing a lot with protein, and I was very, very regimented, very serious about it. If I didn't have my protein powder with me, and at that time, unfortunately, I wasn't using human improvement protein powder because we hadn't met yet. But I did have a protein powder that was pretty good on my gut, although at times it would kind of take me down a wrong turn. But trying a new protein powder, like traveling or whatever, was really, really tough. And yes, I do have like a sensitive digestive system, but regardless, like anybody who's listening to this podcast that knows what protein powder can do to your gut understands how important it is to have a protein powder that agrees with your gut. So the fact that you guys have really done all the diligence and really have said like, hey, it doesn't matter how sensitive your gut is. If you have a gut sensitivity, this is a protein for you. This is a protein for you. And you do not have to worry about anything that could potentially adversely affect your system as a whole with this product. Like, who knows what the xanthan gums do? Who knows what the fillers do? No one really knows because they're a relatively new product that a new ingredient over the last 50 years that hasn't had enough time on the planet to actually see long term what they do. But I agree with you, right? Like I don't have any fillers or anything like that in our product either, because quite frankly, when I see an ingredient on an ingredient stack that I don't know. Especially if there's a number of them where they're more than 12 to 15 letters long. I'm like, why would I, like if I saw that on a shelf in like a fruit stand, like I wouldn't, there'd be no way I would go, oh yeah, that looks like something I want to put into my body.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? And so like, I kind of like that visual of like, hey, all the ingredients that are in your product, you could lay it out on a shelf and be like, oh yeah, like I know what these things are.
100%. And no one wants a product that they are taking to either help them recover, help them improve, help them do anything that's going to make them feel the opposite.
Yeah.
And that's why we were so meticulous in every ingredient that went in there, and why we don't take calling it the easiest to digest protein light. We have so many customers who have IBS, who have other sort of gut maladies. We're like, thank you guys so much. We've been looking for something like this for the longest period of time, and it's the only protein that's ever worked for me.
Yeah, and also you got to look at it, right? Like all of my friends use human improvement protein, all of them.
And that's amazing.
Yeah, and I'm deeply ingrained in the world of fitness, nutrition, the world of better living, the world of better being, human improvement.
Yeah.
And all of my friends use human improvement protein.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean it's true. And so and I post about human improvement all the time, and the amount of people that have DM'd me and said, "Holy smokes, like this stuff is amazing. Thank you so much for putting me onto it." It's always awesome to be able to do something like that for somebody and introduce somebody to something that is going to make them better, right? Even if it's a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like at the end of the day, right? Like we're launching a new product at Creatures of Habit, and it's a really cool product, and all the ingredients in the product actually have been studied to help this certain thing that we're trying to help people do. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you take this product and guess what? You're going to sleep like a goddamn baby and you're never going to have to worry about like winding down ever again. But I will tell you that all the ingredients that are in this product absolutely will help you on the mission to finding and seeking better sleep. I just spilled the beans. Yes, we're launching a sleep product. but that's what I'm saying, right? Like, there's unless you hand somebody like a bag of cocaine, you know what I mean? Like if they do that cocaine, they are going to feel more awake. That's a guarantee.
Dopamine doesn't lie.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's a guarantee. Yeah. But natural ingredients it's like, hey, we are out here trying to help you be a little bit better. Your company, my company, we're just trying to help you be a little bit better, right? And like that is, if we can be a part of your being a little bit better every day on a consistent basis, man, we're doing our jobs.
I mean, you nailed it, Michael. I feel like so much of this world is focused on being the best, like being your best self. Like and I think social media adds to this too. It's just like, look at this step function movement of life. Like I went from this to this, when that's just not the reality. And I feel like that for so many people, that becomes this limiting factor because it's so intimidating.
Yeah.
And there's not nearly enough focus on what are the small daily improvements, because there is no step functions in life. It is a slow hill to climb of like, what's my small win today? What's my small win tomorrow? And those compound to get to those huge, areas of improvement over long periods of time. But so many times, so many people are focused and all you see is the before and the after. And you miss that it's a slog. But like, what are the small things that you can do every day, whether it's a nutrition, whether it's movement, whether it's just getting a little bit of, education of yourself. What are those small things that you can do? What are those small wins? Because over time, they accumulate, they add up. And then you look back and you see all that you've accomplished and you never would have thought that you could have gotten there if that was the goal at the end from when you started.
I think that's a great segue into talking about a little bit of morning routine stuff. Josh, why don't you walk us through what your morning routine looks like?
So I'm an early riser. I'm usually up around 5:30. For me, it's a quick coffee. And then I try to avoid procrastinating, going for a run as long as possible. And so I've got to get the shoes on and get out there, get 3 to 5 miles in every morning. And then quick smoothie, meal one, and then on with the day. So that's what sets me up in the morning.
So the 3 to 5 mile run, is that something that you've been doing a long time?
So I started when I was traveling in a previous career. I was working for a large corporate coffee company and I was flying every week. And it was really difficult to try and get into the gym. I played rugby in college and it was really difficult to maintain A, nutrition and B, upper body strength with a crazy travel schedule. So I said, okay, I can always bring my running shoes with me. And that was something that I started doing out of necessity. I've done 6 or 7 marathons at this point, and that was an excuse and a goal to help drive me. And it's really the only thing I can stick with because I love eating and I love having great food and great drinks with friends. And so I had to run in order not to become 300 pounds.
So your non-negotiable is that run
every morning. Yeah.
I love that. And honestly, I really love the simplicity in it. I think there's a lot of morning routine stuff that we can do. And I think, and I am definitely one of those humans that really do enjoy sort of a long, somewhat arduous morning routine. I really do. I love it. However, that's not for everyone, right? And it doesn't, and I'm kind of learning now over a little bit of self digging, a little indulgence on what it is for me. I need structure personally. Yeah. I need like an enormous amount of it in order to be fulfilled. I need it, and I think it probably stems from my years of addiction, right? But being on the other side of addiction now, like I really do feel like I need like a good long structured morning routine in order to show up with my 100%. Jason, what about you?
Mine's pretty quick and simple. I wake up, get right out of bed. I've cut the snoozing out of my life, which was a huge thing for a long period of time, but it's alarm.
How long has it been no snooze?
2 years probably.
Nice.
Which was years and years of lots of snooze.
Like multiple snoozes.
Multiple snoozes. There was a period of time where I was also getting up at outrageously early hours. But then I go straight to the espresso machine, make an espresso, have a quick cellular detox crystals. I know that you're a fan of that. Those are on our website as well. I do the New York Times Wordle. That's the first thing I look at on my phone, sort of get my brain going. Then I can't help but check email. I know I shouldn't do it that early, but I just do the quick, are there any, we're a small business. You're looking at the entire team. Make sure there's no fires that need to be put out. Make sure there's no customer emails that need to be responded to, because that's the thing I prioritize most over anything, is making sure we get back to people quickly and making sure, we treat people the way we want to be treated. And then movement of some sort. Either go to Dosist in Venice, we saw you yesterday, and shout out to Logan, or I take my dog on a long walk or down to the beach, just something to get my body outside and moving around before I sit in front of a screen for a long period of time.
There is such a, I mean, I've been doing this podcast now for, I don't know, close to a year, I think. Probably actually longer than that, maybe a little over a year. I think this is like we're in the 60s episode-wise now. 95% of the people that have been on the show have movement as part of their morning routine. Necessary, non-negotiable. I'm also one of them. I've shifted my stuff around a little bit where I used to just go right to movement, and now I sort of push it out a little bit longer because I have kids. It's important. Kids actually get me moving too. But movement is so important. It's so important. Movement is so important. It's one of those things where I really do believe it's like the all cure for almost anything. You know, like funny enough, like yesterday, I ran into you at the CrossFit gym, and after the CrossFit workout, I started doing I have an extensive CrossFit program that I'm on right now, and I threw my back out. It sucked. I hate when it happens. It doesn't happen often, but it happens, right? When you train hard, it just happens sometimes. And most, like, you would think, like, oh shit, like you threw your back out, like you gotta sit down, you gotta lie down, you gotta rest, you know, for the next 3 days. And the interesting thing is that couldn't be like that's wrong. It's not accurate. Actually, what helps your back unwind is movement. It actually, like, if you sit and lie down, your back ultimately ends up like continuing. It's continuing to seize, and it can, and the muscles tense up even more. And so when you move, you're actually you know, blood flow is going to the area. Things are moving around, and it opens up. Last night, I was at an event where I had to be on my feet a lot, and I was a little nervous about it. And honestly, like, I didn't even know that my back was an issue until I got back to the house and I was like, oh shit. I'd like to ask you guys about a wind down routine, because I feel like wind down is as important as your morning routine. Do you guys have a wind down routine? You want to start, Jason?
Yeah. I mean, this one's the hardest to be consistent with, though. I think for any of us, consistency of our morning routine and consistency of our wind down routine is so important, because everything that happens in the middle is, for the most part, not out of our control, but very unpredictable. But those are the two things that we can really be consistent with. For me, it's trying to put the computer away at least 2 hours before bed. Definitely never having the computer in bed. You know, sit down, have a nice dinner with my fiance, have a conversation about the day, maybe watch something. But the one thing that I've added in the last couple of years that I had earlier in my life but had lost for a while is making sure I read before I go to bed. You try to spend half an hour reading once I get into bed. And I also had, for the longest time, I would always be like, I need to read something that's going to make me better. It needs to be some biography, some business book. And then I would find myself putting it down and spinning. As soon as I put it down, I'd be like, how do I incorporate this in my life? Or I wake up in the middle of the morning, my mind would be going a million miles a minute. So I've now broken it up when I get into bed, where I'll spend 10 or 15 minutes reading something like that. And then I will take 10 or 15 minutes to read something for pleasure. Generally, it is some type of stupid sci-fi book, or just something that can allow my brain to turn off, and then put me in that place where I am in total relaxation and totally disengaged from the day, and sort of transported to some other world that has nothing to do with my day-to-day. That really calms me and allows me to get into a deeper sleep and sleep through the night.
I love that. I've found that reading fiction is something that I stopped doing for years and years. And then my wife said to me one day, she's like, you never read anything fun.
Yeah.
You're always reading some self-development, some autobiography, some history, book. She's like, why don't you ever just read like a story? Can't you read a tale? Mm-hmm. And so I started picking up some old authors that I used to read way back in the day, like Chuck Palahniuk and like stuff like that, and Cormac McCarthy, although it can kind of get a little dark. But like reading that stuff is like so much. It feels so much. It's just fun to read that kind of stuff. I really do think that, like, you know, brain exercising is super important, but it doesn't always have to be the serious business, you know? And so I love that you did that. When we were just traveling on vacation, I made sure that I did not have any serious business books. It was like lots of fun books, you know?
It's amazing how that'll help your mind just wind down and turn off at the end of the day to the point where it's actually something you look forward to.
Yeah, I actually don't read before bed, although I should. I read in the morning in the sauna. That's kind of when I get like my 10 to 20 pages in every day. But I audiobook every night. So I take one AirPod and I stick it in my ear every single night. It's the last thing I do right before bed. And I typically, and I am listening to something super heavy, like Sapiens or something that's just dense, you know, where it's just like, there's no shot I'm interested in this actually. And I'm out in like 30 seconds, you know? But you know, that's kind of like how I like to call it a night. What about you, Josh?
I'm the audiobook guy as well. I wish I could read. I find if I pull the book out at night to read it, I'm halfway through a page and I fall asleep. And so what I'll do is I'll usually put out a biography. I love listening to stories. And so they're often, you know, business people or I would say I've read the Richard Branson Losing My Virginity, listened to it about 25 times. It's one of my favorite stories of all time.
I love that book. Yeah.
It's great. And I just throw an audiobook, 15-minute timer, then I'm out. I'm usually asleep by 10:45 at that point.
Do you guys have a specific time that you like to be in bed?
Yeah, I like to be in bed by 10:15 and asleep by 11, and then awake at, depending on the I try to be very consistent with my wake ups, so generally around 6:30 up, so I have time to do everything I need to do before I get to the gym or do some type of movement.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm usually getting to bed around 10 and then probably asleep by like 10:30ish. I've got a partner who likes to stay up late and work, and so that's been an interesting getting used to that. And so we usually go to bed together, and then I hear the keys tapping around 10:30.
Mm-hmm. So you know that's a really great topic. I think that would be helpful for people to hear about you and your significant other going to bed at different times. So you like to get into bed a little bit earlier. Is that a challenge for you? Did you have to like make that, like, draw a boundary there because you enjoy getting more sleep, or was that something that like it was just easy for you to just do?
Well, I think we end up getting. She actually, I think, gets more sleep than me, but she'll wake up significantly later, and so her mind is just alive. You know, midnight to 2 a.m. is when she gets the most creative. There's no distractions, and so that allows her to work really well. You know, at the start of our relationship, it was interesting because I was the old man, right? You're going to bed early, like, what are you doing, right? And so it caused an interesting discussion. I know a lot of entrepreneurs as well have that same kind of friction when we've got a partner who's more creative. And you figure out, like, how do you address that, right? How do you do it in a way that it works for the whole relationship?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my wife and I it's so interesting how aligned we are in regards to, like, what time we like to go to bed. She goes to bed at the same time as I do, but sleeps about an hour and a half, 2 hours longer than I do. So she needs, no matter what, 8 hours, but most of the time gets like between 8 and 9. Mm-hmm. I never, unfortunately, very rarely do I get 8 hours. My sweet spot is like 7 to 7.5 hours. I'm sure, and I was listening to a podcast recently about performance, that if you're not getting 8 hours of sleep a night, you are getting by. So like I would love to know what it would be like to get 8 to 9 hours of sleep on a consistent basis, because what he did say was, like, you are actually, like, you will wake up in peak performance if you consistently get between 8 and 9 hours of sleep a night. And so I don't know what that's like. Honestly, I've never actually experienced that. Outside of when I was completely out of my mind and, you know, was sleeping like 12 hours a day because I'd go to bed at 9 o'clock in the morning and wake up at 9 o'clock.
Not exactly.
Yeah.
But I feel like you hear that all the time, but I also think maybe that's for the majority of people, but I don't think that's for I think everyone, like nutrition, like working out, like anything else, everyone has their own baseline that they then need to operate off of. Like I've worked with people who need 4 hours of sleep a night, and the idea of them ever getting 8 hours of sleep and then they'll get 8 hours of sleep and they're like, I feel horrible.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I think it's important for everyone to explore what is that amount of sleep you need. Like for me, I'm like you, I need 7 hours. If I get 8 hours every night, because I've tried this for like a month, and Whoop's been great for that. It's like you can actually track how many hours of sleep you get over a 30-day period. And I did a month where I made it my goal to get my average to 8 hours of sleep a night, and I did not feel good.
You didn't?
I did not feel good.
Huh.
And I know if my average hours of sleep stick between 6:45 and 7 over the course of a month, I feel my best. If it's below that, I drag. If it gets closer to 8, I drag. Wow. And I think it's just, again, it's the beauty of having all of this technology and all of these wearables. As long as you don't let them rule your life, which I know for a lot of people they do, you can find these things for yourself. You find what foods don't work for you. For me, it's like I've stopped drinking during the week, just because I've seen how I'm just gonna have 1 or 2 drinks at the end of the day to wind down. Just seeing what that does to my sleep, realizing that I'm not getting a whole lot of benefit out of that, and I can replace with other things.
You know what's so interesting that you say that? We're a number of episodes into this podcast. And I don't know if it's because of the people that I reach out to be on the podcast, but not a single person has ever said a drink is part of my wind down routine. Not a single one.
It was for years for me.
I don't like, if I wasn't an alcoholic, I think I would have a drink to help me wind down at night.
Yeah.
Like one drink to just take the edge off. I think I would. Any habits that you guys have that have been pretty consistent in your life? Being an entrepreneur is not an easy thing, right? And we don't have anyone to really answer to. So our success and happiness is truly contingent on our ability to stay focused and to stay structured and to create a schedule for ourselves that is consistently manageable. Is there any habits that you guys use on throughout your day that help you do that successfully?
I would say for me, it's running. Honestly, it's the consistency I've had between different homes, different geographies, different careers, and it's. I know if I stop doing it, I can't think as clearly. I don't get a very good sleep if I don't have that movement in, and I just feel lousy.
So running, you think, is like the number one habit that you've used on a consistent basis?
That's for me. Yeah.
What about you?
2 things. I think one is consistency of the morning and the nighttime routine. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's like, again, as an entrepreneur where you don't really know, whatever you think you have planned for the day generally ends up being something completely different. So what are the things that I can be consistent on that are going to set me up for the most success every single day? And being consistent with those. So how I start the day and how I end the day, putting me in the right mindset to then be able to handle whatever comes up over the course of that day. The other thing is doing everything in my power to finish one task before I go on to the next. Because at any point, there's so many things to get done. And then you do 5% of this, 5% of this, 5% of this, 5% of this, 5% of this. I get another 5% of this. And all of a sudden, you've got 5% of 20 different things done. And if you continue to do that, you'll never get any of them done. So it's so hard because there's so many things that you want to do. So finding that ability to prioritize and get done the things that need to get done before you move on to anything else has been huge for me.
I love that you brought that up. And one thing that I have found to be super helpful for me in that arena, and this is going to be hard. I'm going to say it because it's hard for me to do, but it's something that I really do try to pay close attention to. How many tabs I have open on my computer. So I've noticed that the computer is a black hole of death. I like to call it, the black hole of death.
Yes.
For so long, we got through life, huge business deals without computers. It is the necessary evil today. I don't even want to begin to talk about the little thing that we have in our pockets and our hands all the time. But the difference between the phone and the computer is on your phone, you can only see one tab at a time for the most part, right? So you can take one tab, can take you to the next with notifications and pop you around, and before you know it, you're in the hole. However, on the computer, if you have 14 tabs open and you're doing something, you're writing an email, and then somehow, some way, your eye just sort of wanders up and sees the open tab, and you're like, oh shoot, I got to get to that. You know what? I'm going to stop writing this email. Let me draft this. I'll push it to a minute later. I'm going to get to this. Boom, you open up that tab. That tab opens you up into this. Then that tab tells you to go check Slack. And then, oh, you're right. Slack is and then you're caught in the hole. So what I've been trying to do is really quit Slack or any application that I could just have lingering open. I quit it once I've done looking at it and responding it. Any tab on my computer that I could just leave there because I check it pretty regularly, like my Shopify page, right? How many times have you looked at your Shopify page and got caught? You just get caught, you know? And the reason why is because it's sitting there on your computer open all the time. And so it's a pain in the ass to go log in to Shopify every day, multiple times a day. But the beauty of it is that like, I don't need to look at Shopify multiple times a day. I just don't. I'm a founder. I'm the CEO of a company. You guys are founders of a company. You don't need to open up that tab 7 times a day. But you do, because it's sitting open on your computer.
I'll take the over on 7.
So what I'm saying is that what's been super helpful for me, a little habit that I like to do is boom, not having it open on the computer. Slack, quit. I need to go check it. My assistant will shoot me a text and say, hey, you got a couple of Slack items you got to look at. Much happier to do that than have 17 different things that are taking my attention. So I love that you brought that up because it's
the hardest to do.
So hard. It's so hard. You know, I was on a panel last night and this woman was telling me that every single night at 8:30, she deletes all of her social media accounts. Every night. I'm like, that is intense. And she's like, that said, I have never found myself, since she's been doing this, I think she said she's been doing it for like a year. She has never found herself post 8:30 at night scrolling on social media. She just isn't doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so wait, you delete it every day? She's like, I delete it every day. I'm like, that's crazy. She takes it off of her devices.
Amazing.
Habits that you've broken. Any habits that you've broken that you are comfortable talking about and how you broke them?
I would say the number one for me is being afraid to ask for help and being afraid to be vulnerable with the problems that I'm having professionally and personally. It's hard. I feel like we're always expected to be perfect. And especially in this entrepreneur hustle culture, it's like, look at me, look what I'm doing. Like, I got it all figured out. I've got this. And it's easy to get caught up in that. And the reality is that's not the truth for anyone. And it's hard to pull yourself back and realize that people want to help you, but they can't help you if they don't know you need help. So being vulnerable and opening up and saying, hey, I'm having a problem with this, or, oh, hey, this seems to be working for you. How did you do that? And can you help me? I mean, every time we talk about, I feel like we get on the phone to talk about human improvement, and then I end up spending 3/4 of the time being like, hey, Michael, what's working for you on this? We're like, who's your partner for this? And it's hard. It's so hard because I spent the first decade of my career working in the finance world where you can't make mistakes. It's like if you make a mistake, it's millions of dollars that are lost, and everything needs to be perfect. Everything needs to be quadruple checked. This world of entrepreneurship is the exact opposite of that. And if you try to make, and obviously there's exceptions to that, but for the most part on the day-to-day, if you try to make everything perfect, you will get nothing done. And fighting that need for perfection with the need to just get shit done, get it out the door, and not letting, what does this say? Not letting great be the enemy of good. And, because it's okay to make mistakes, because you can fix them and you can iterate, and you don't learn unless you make mistakes. Especially, for most of us, we're teaching this stuff to ourselves. Even as many questions as you might ask, and as vulnerable as you might be to other people, you still need to get in there and do it, because if you don't try, you can never fail. But if you don't try, you can never succeed either. And I think just getting over that hump of not being afraid to make mistakes, understanding that everything doesn't have to be perfect, and then just knowing when to ask for help and not pretending that you're perfect or vulnerable. I think those have been huge things for me as we sort of build this business and move forward and try to improve as humans.
I identify so much with the, you get a group of entrepreneurs around. The question that's always asked is, how's things going? How's it going? Yeah. And as entrepreneurs, you always want to say things are going well. Yeah. Things are going well. And you know what? The truth of the matter is that if your business is still open and operating, things are going well, because it's really fucking hard. Yeah. It's really hard. So no matter how you cut it, no matter how you slice it, the truth is, if you're an entrepreneur and your business is operating, things are going well. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean it's not really hard and really scary all the time, because it is. And anybody who's going to tell you differently is actually, in my opinion, not being authentic. Mm-hmm. However, I don't think it's necessary to be like, actually, if you really want to know, we are having a really hard time raising money. And we got an email from a customer that ripped our website apart yesterday. Like all the things that are actually happening. Yeah. But at the end of the day, and I think that it's important that people hear this. If you are an entrepreneur, if you want to be an entrepreneur, and you have the balls to go out, the audacity to go out and think your idea can change or impact someone else's life, congratulations. If you go out and open that business and you're running that business and that business is still alive, I'm here to tell you, you're 1% of the 1%. Mm-hmm. So you should be fucking proud of that. And when people ask you how it is going, the real answer is, well.
Yeah.
Because you're alive. But if you want to get granular, ask the person who's asked you, how much time do you have? Yeah. Because at the end of the day, it's a tough game. Mm-hmm. What about you, Josh?
It's interesting. Just on that note, we jokingly say that if people knew how difficult it was to be an entrepreneur, no one would do it, right? So there's a beautiful amount of ignorance that's required to do something new, and I think that's the only way we actually get to create new things. If we all knew of the stress and the challenge, no one would start anything. No one would launch new products. There'd be no innovation in the world, right? So there's a beauty in the ignorance of that. For me, it was similar background to Jason in finance, although he was enduring it longer than I could. When I was in my 20s, I would say yes to everything, right? You try and say yes to opportunities, to meet people. And as I've gotten older, I've started saying no. And it's been I still have a long ways to go, as we were chatting about earlier. It's been the biggest lever point for me to be able to get more done, is to say, I don't need to take that meeting, right? I want to talk, I don't want to talk on the phone with you. There's no value here, right? There's a lot more power in that as well. And so that's, so to answer your question, stopping saying yes to things has really been a game changer for me.
Gosh, you say that, and I just feel so empowered, because I think, most entrepreneurs in general are out there trying to help people be better, which ultimately means we appreciate how people feel. And a lot of us tend to want to make people feel good. And that also means not hurt their feelings. And so a lot of us tend to be, we say yes, or we're inclined to say yes because we're hard charging and we think that we can get it all done. And I could not agree more with you that saying no is incredibly helpful for you personally, but also the business that you're running, and honestly, for the person who's asking you. Because if you are on the fence of a yes, the meeting is not going to pan out the way the person is hoping for.
Right.
So you're not only saving your time, but you're also saving their time, right? And so I have always had like that problem with like, I like to say yes a lot too. And something that I've been trying to really reinforce is if it's not a hell yes, it is a fuck no. Because a hell yes, and I honestly surround myself with people that will check me and be like, Mike, is that a hell yes? Like, honestly, is that a hell yes? Because if it's not, and it doesn't seem like it is, it seems like there might be a mask getting pulled over your eyes here. Like, you should know that. That's a no. That's a hard no. And so I couldn't agree more. Guys, this is such a fun conversation. I really appreciate you guys coming out here. If people want to find you, if people want to get their hands on some human improvement, protein powder, some of those incredible detox crystals that I use every single day, what do we do?
Go to our website. It's www.buyhi.co. That's BUYHI.co. Log on. We'll make a discount code for any of the listeners, KOH20. Get 20% off. It's much more than we generally give, but we love to give to your community. And we're so happy to have been here today and finally got the time to sit down and have this chat, which is both enlightening and cathartic all at the same time.
Well, I think, the cool thing about our relationship is we're both entrepreneurs running companies, and I work with you guys on an ambassador side of things as well, because I love the product, and I literally, it's a part of my life every single day. So I'm, any brand that I work with has to fill that gap for me, where it's like, actually, this is something I use every single day. So for you guys listening, I don't use any other protein powder. This is the only protein powder I use, and you should definitely get your hands on some. You should definitely check it out. I appreciate you guys tuning in to another episode of the Creatures of Habit podcast. It would mean the world to me, if you would share this podcast with friends and family. Share it with anyone who you think could potentially benefit from it. If you have a bunch of friends that are entrepreneurs, or if you're an entrepreneur, you have friends that want to be entrepreneurs, this is a great episode for the aspiring entrepreneur, the entrepreneur that is out there just trying to be better on a daily basis. Please share this episode with them. It would also really make this guy happy if you wrote a review on the podcast. If you love the podcast, awesome. If you don't love the podcast, still write a review. I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd really love to learn from you in any way I can. A 5-star rating would be truly, truly spectacular. That would be like the best thing you can do for me if you gave us a 5-star rating anywhere you listen to your podcast. You know the deal, guys. Appreciate you. Love you. Until the next one. Peace.